there's lots of talk now that SaaS, software as a service, is dead as a business model. Satya Nadella from Microsoft's coming out saying he doesn't think that model is going to work and survive. And I totally agree. I don't think it is. It is going to be more of a service as software, like the Palantir model, where you build with clients, you take those capabilities and you build capabilities that clients can utilize. It's not just another, stick on a credit card SaaS subscription. Fundamentally changing everything we're doing, really.
When you start building trust in your own system, and it starts to build memory of what you like and your preferences and your interactions, and then how you can, because of that trust, leverage that knowledge about you across different things, whether it's clothing or sports, like we were talking about, or in your work environment, these sort of things, you just start to get this core bring your own AI, which I just want to take everywhere now.
You have to have 100% trust in it. And at the moment, most organizations don't trust AI. And it's not about hallucinations. It's actually, this is, our data's, these critical decisions we're asking for advice on, it's going outside our environment onto servers. We don't know where they are. We don't know if it's been trained on, who's training on that data, who's looking at that data. So as AI becomes more and more useful, the trust level, it becomes critical. Because if it now knows all your M&A strategy, so which companies what you're interested in buying, that's massively price sensitive. If you can't lock down that knowledge and keep it completely inside, air-gapped within your environment, you're at risk, massive, massive risk.
Baseline.
The baseline is designed to create an emotional response.
I've seen things you won't believe.
More human than human.
Make you question everything.
I've seen so many companies just wrap the LLMs. And because the LLMs are just so amazingly powerful and, and profound in some ways, certainly at their ability to digitize human behavior and create emotional connections and relationships. So this idea that I would say billions of dollars of VC money is being put into LLM wrappers. My worry a little bit with it is that, like, why would the LLM provider not just cannibalize every possible revenue opportunity around the LLM? Because OpenAI, it's not a new AWS. It's not a grey infrastructure layer that enables businesses. The OpenAI ChatGPT, the Anthropic, Google's Gemini, and Google seem to be doing some amazing work at the moment.
Yes.
I have been against Google for a while, and this last few months I've kind of actually started to think, I've maybe jumped the gun on thinking Google's search is obsolete because of OpenAI, but actually Veo 3 is unbelievable.
Yes.
And Google are actually using AI to get a good foothold in the enterprise.
Yes.
So I guess my first just idea is that there's going to be a bit of a bubble around these super fast agile startups that built value around the LLM.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the .com days. When I was just joined a .com business in 1999. We listed later in the year, massively oversubscribed. And I was 29, CFO of a listed tech company, thinking this is amazing. And back in those days, it was you set up a website, put .com on the end, and you could raise a ton of money. And very few of those businesses still stand around today. So I think we're definitely at that phase where there's a lot of businesses where they've, as you say, they put a wrapper around ChatGPT, and they have no moat, they have no defensibility. They're a moment in time. They get a bunch of users, but those users are transient, and as soon as OpenAI come add that feature, or Perplexity or Anthropic, they're gone overnight. So there is absolutely, a complete, a bubble like from kind of parallel to the .com days. I think the other challenge though right now is that it's understanding where in that AI sort of stack you do have a moat, because right now OpenAI has no moat. Most people, you probably have a number of AI apps on your phone. I do. If OpenAI didn't exist tomorrow, we would just swap to Anthropic. We'd swap to, we'd use our own platform, Collective. We wouldn't mind. They're all, commoditized in many ways. Excuse me. And I think for the, they're all trying to create a moat. So OpenAI is trying to get into the enterprise. Google's trying to get into the enterprise. Even Perplexity are trying to add in more value, try and get deeper into the organization. So yeah, I think there's a lot of change happening. And for investors, I think they're struggling to understand where are the winners going to be. Same as the .com days, it was hard to understand. In early days, you just throw money at everything and hope you get something right. But I think even now, Sequoia and Andreessen recently came out sort of saying where they thought the value was, and it was in the application layer, not in the LLM. That's a commodity. You've seen what DeepSeek did in terms of the impact. So I think there is going to be a lot of change, but it's what is crystal clear is it is a transformational technology, 100% it is, but it's probably not going to play out how people think it's going to play out.
It's very exciting.
It is. I mean, we talk about it like dog years in terms of technology, because I've lived in technology all my life. Started coding at 12 in 1982 on a ZX81. I've never seen the speed of change and the combination of technologies and the differences and changes to business models. There's lots of talk now that SaaS, software as a service, is dead as a business model. Satya Nadella from Microsoft's coming out saying he doesn't think that model is going to work and survive. And I totally agree. I don't think it is. It is going to be more of a service as software, like the Palantir model, where you build with clients, you take those capabilities and you build capabilities that clients can utilize. It's not just another, stick on a credit card SaaS subscription. Fundamentally changing everything we're doing, really. It's, so it is absolutely groundbreaking, not just from transformation to society. It is absolutely, from a technology point of view, it's moving so fast as well.
One of the things that I keep coming into in my mind is this idea of the AI being orientated around, we used to have called them consumer, the B2C, the consumer. But and we saw a little bit with, Dropbox and the mobile phones, where people started bringing their own device, bring your own storage, orientation around the user. And just this last few weeks, my consideration that, certainly with my maturity of how I use ChatGPT, when you start building trust in your own system, and it starts to build memory of what you like and your preferences and your interactions, and then how you can, because of that trust, leverage that knowledge about you across different things, whether it's clothing or sports, like we were talking about, or in your work environment, these sort of things, you just start to get this core bring your own AI, which I just want to take everywhere now. I want to take it when I want to use it when I'm buying clothes. I want to use it in, incremental progress with baseline. I want to use it in situations that I want to leverage data from other parts of my life in that. So I just wonder, again, is enterprise tech itself threatened by, whether it's SaaS or by the fact that ChatGPT and others are orientating the technology around the users and the expectation and the traction because of trust and history and memory? It just makes everything else seem really bad.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of hyper-personalization, is absolutely critical. I mean, I think for a lot of enterprise, though, I don't think they necessarily see it as a threat, because you're still going to go to shops, go to restaurants, buy cars, buy houses. I think for most large organizations, it's not a threat in that sense. It's not going to change, how the physical things you buy, but it would definitely change, the way you interact with things. So I think, the likes of Google are, concerned because you can just bypass search. So that, they're trying to embed Gemini into their search process because you look at, it was Apple a few weeks ago announced for the first time ever the number of search queries run through Google has actually declined because people are going straight to Perplexity, they're going straight to their apps on their phones, they're doing the searches, it's bypassing AdWords and bypassing content creators.
Thank God.
Yeah, well, absolutely, you don't want the friction, you just want the answer. Most people just want the answer. Can you book me a restaurant? Great. But I think the challenge as well around that is you have to have different personas. So, you have Ian as a cyclist, right? I want to go to Italy. Your requirements as a cyclist are different in terms of where you want to stay from a hotel perspective. On my bike's going to be, is there somewhere safe to store my bikes? Whether if you're going on a business trip or you're going, you're on it on, you're doing it with your, with a partner or something. So you have, people start to bring in, that hyper personalization, but personas within that, even within an organization. So we do this with organizations. You have a persona where you understand what the objectives of the company is or the organization. Like in defense, they have defense tasks where they're legally obligated to defend the realm, defend overseas territories, counterterrorism, and so on. But also within your role, you will have certain criteria and objectives as well. So understanding those, so that is really, really key, because if 3 people in an organization say, should I do X, Y, Z? It should, in most cases, give you different answers. Now, at the moment, a ChatGPT won't. It will give you this, there's a probabilistic aspect to AI. So it wouldn't always give you exactly the same answer, but it would give you pretty much the same answer regardless of who asks. But that hyper-personalization where it really understands what you as an individual or you as a senior executive in a big global business need, what your objectives and constraints are, is critical to AI actually being properly, a proper game changer. It has to have that hyper-personalization. But that brings in a massive, massive trust issues, because if it knows everything about you, you have to have 100% trust in it. And at the moment, most organizations don't trust AI. And it's not about hallucinations. It's actually, this is, our data's, these critical decisions we're asking for advice on, it's going outside our environment onto servers. We don't know where they are. We don't know if it's been trained on, who's training on that data, who's looking at that data. So as AI becomes more and more useful, the trust level, it becomes critical. Because if it now knows all your M&A strategy, so which companies what you're interested in buying, that's massively price sensitive. If you can't lock down that knowledge and keep it completely inside, air-gapped within your environment, you're at risk, massive, massive risk. So the trust factor, as AI becomes more useful, becomes more and more critical. And that's why, we build things into air-gapped environments. We run, one of our apps runs on the iPhone, fully disconnected on airplane mode. So, and the data doesn't go anywhere, stays completely on your device. You can wipe it if need be. But that trust element becomes more and more critical.
This idea that I want to just challenge this for a second, because everybody likes to talk and say the things you're saying.
Yes.
But they're all using ChatGPT.
Yep.
They're all using it.
Yep.
I have sat in meetings in the Palace of Westminster where basically ChatGPT is talking to itself through multiple human interfaces.
Yes.
And they want to, these people, I feel as though the shortcut to looking clever is using ChatGPT and other generative AI tools.
Yeah.
And that shortcut is so compelling.
Yes.
People do it. My just slight pushback is that ease of use, that frictionless experience to be enabled and empowered with insights from information. It's just so compelling. Does it not trump privacy? Does it not? Are people prepared to give away privacy to create the perception of intelligence and equality, intellectual equality?
Yeah, I think at the consumer level, yeah, absolutely. If you went to Anybody at university, and they said, right, do you want, your PhD dissertation, do you want to put it through ChatGPT and improve it? They'd have absolutely no issues about that at all. In the enterprise space and in the regulated space, which is where we work, you can't do it. It's just an absolute complete no. So, but it's that situation where you've got some of the world's biggest organisations who said you can't use this incredibly productive enhancing capability because we're just terrified of the risk, and that's a crazy approach as well. So we built generative AI capabilities into the Ministry of Defence pre-ChatGPT. But we built in trust as a key aspect to that. And the way we define it within the approach that we take is that you still need to be human in the loop. You're still, if you're getting it to generate you a report using tons of data in minutes, doing deep research and so on, and it understands what you care about as an organisation, you are still responsible for that report. Same way if you delegated it to a junior and said go off and do it, or to Deloitte or Accenture, it's your neck on the line. So although we can add in tons of intelligence to fact check and to source things and add in agents that are doing quality control and red teaming your responses and everything else, ultimately it's still your responsibility. So if you're going to submit that report to a general, it's your name on the block. It's not ChatGPT or whatever models that we use. I mean, we use private models that we can run in air-gapped environments, but it is, and I think that's where there's a bit of a cultural shift, is that people use it with abandon in their private lives. Do a recipe. What should I buy for my teenage daughter for Christmas? I have no idea. Brilliant for things like that. But in the enterprise space, especially in regulated sector, I don't think people really understand how to use it properly yet. And I think there's still that cultural or kind of education process that we're going through, because it's not infallible. It's a tool. You still have to check it. But it can massively improve what you're doing and make you massively more productive. And we use it in writing code, but we still, we still use it to make us more, 10 times more efficient. We still put it through the tests. We're still, it's still that person who's doing the merge request is still validating the ultimate code at the end of it. So I think we're still going through that process where people don't really know how to use it in the right way.
The vendors of these technologies themselves call themselves client zero.
Mm-hmm.
And the areas that they're deploying their own AI into their own companies they've completely shredded HR departments, coding augmentation to improve code quality and time, and marketing, content generation and marketing. Now, those enterprises have basically created huge economic efficiency and commercial leverage by building products to make their own employees obsolete, to show the market that you can make your employees obsolete by using these products. And there's just a bit of friction in my mind about that as a narrative, because there's no other way those companies can come back from this. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
They're using it themselves. They call it client zero. They're consuming their own products to show the market that their products are doable. So they've created, either with the use of AI or not, a narrative that has momentum and can't be pulled back from. Mm-hmm. Can you see the slight warning sign that there's there?
Yeah, I mean, a good example was Klarna, the instant credit, the checkout. They had, I think it was 700 people in support, customer support. So, you'd ring up and ask them. And they decided to bring in AI chatbots last year, I think it was, to replace those. And they tried it. And at first, when they did a survey, would you be happy to talk to a chatbot rather than a real human? And there was like, no, we don't want to do that. And then when they actually did the experimentation, the feedback was really good, because the reality was people didn't want to talk to a human. They just wanted their problem fixed. whatever their issue was, they wanted it done now. And it wasn't about talking to a human they liked. They just thought when they talked to a human, it was more likely to get fixed than the old technology. So when they then actually implemented it, people were like, great, because I just rang up, talked in natural language what my problem was, and it got resolved. And so they got rid of all their customer support people. Now what they've done, very recently, I think last month, they announced, actually, we're going to start recruiting them back. Because I think, there is a limit to where the AI can work at the moment, not just around the technology, but it's sometimes about that human level, where, yes, you could probably go down to 200 people, but I still think there is that human in the loop. And I think this is where...
I just want to...
Yeah.
I don't know what Klarna is. Is it the ability to get finance to buy crap off the internet?
Absolutely.
Right.
So check-in, you can press a button and say...
Do you know what I would just say?
Yeah.
I would say, I wonder if market sentiment on Klarna went down because the people, this audience were people who are struggling financially, are being hammered with crap advertising on the internet.
Yes.
To the extent where that product that they don't need, they feel as though they need, and they can't afford right now, so they're gonna put their payments over a few months, which is a terrible idea. A terrible idea. Financing consumer products, terrible idea. And Klarna not only did that, the very audience of people they're selling to, they take the people who are working hard, they're struggling, minimum wage, maybe a little bit more. They've just replaced with a load of systems to improve their margin. Like, I've got to be honest, when I actually ask a few questions morally about that whole business model and whether it's AI, I don't personally like it.
Yeah.
So I question whether, is that really a point on the efficiency of agentic AI and its ability to operate in support? Or is it just fundamentally bad marketing?
Well, I mean, I think, if you look at when people offshored or big organisations offshored call centres, they did it purely for financial reasons. It was just a fraction of the cost. Was it a good experience for consumers? No, it was terrible because it just took longer, and it was longer to get your issue resolved. And now there's been a trend to kind of bring it, nearshore it again and bring it back into the UK or wherever, the US. And I think there is that that the drivers are financial, not about customer experience.
So, but if they are about customer experience, we could enter, I believe, an amazing world where you have highly optimized, personalized engagements, engagements that are driven by data about you, around the things that to give you much better outcomes. Like, when I look at the purity of the application of generative AI and effectively a lot of information to help customers traverse problems, it's amazing. If it's just being done to basically purport to the stock market about margin, well, take a breather, because you're impacting human lives, slow it down. But if you're actually orientating around the customer and making something beautiful, or indeed orientating around the effectiveness of a drone in a battle space, then actually brilliant. If you just say we're going to cut out costs, and
No, exactly. I mean, when we talk to more sort of the enterprise clients, where they have a slightly different focus, we say don't just think about the lazy answer is, we can save people, and it's like that's usually the worst way to think about it. Think about what revenue opportunities, customer opportunities now become possible. Can you give, if you're a bank, can you give somebody who's is at the kind of the bottom of your list of customers an experience like they've got a private bank? Or because you can now do it for a fraction, you can elevate people's experience rather than thinking, right now we can cut out a bunch of cost, because that's something which is it's transformational. But so I know I totally agree, and I think it's if you think about I think one of the areas I think that's changed a lot last year in the sort of AI space as well is in speech to text, natural responses, and the great thing about talking with interruptions and stuff. The great thing about that is it helps more people. So when the first Gen AI came out and it was all text and typing in, you can have a conversation. The assumption there was you had to do it on a laptop or a desktop or through now that excludes a whole bunch of people who don't have access to digital technologies. But once you've got really good AI on speech, it opens up things like phone. So if you're an OAP, you have got no smartphone, you've got no digital comms, you hate that, but you want to ring your doctor, and maybe English isn't your first language, and you want to book an appointment. The fact you can ring up and speak in your first language and have a natural conversation, just explain it and book whatever the problem might be, is game changing for those people. So where you're, it's a horrible word. I hate the word, but the democratization of the technology, it can be massively game changing if people think about the end user. Don't just think about cost. You think about actually how can we engage better with all of our customers and give them, almost like a VIP treatment, as if they're the most important person in the world because we've remembered their preferences from the last time they called. We remember they like, this size or this, whatever it might be. I think is really, really, can be a massively empowering. And you think from the public sector side, we've tried to improve digital technologies, but they were all, you still had to have a website. You still had to go on a website. You still had to be digital savvy to be able to book your passport renewal online. But what if you don't? What if if you don't want to do that? But everyone has access to a phone or to write. You can write in, digitally scan it, do it. So I think it is really, has a potential as a technology to actually increase engagement, make people happy. People can have a conversation with AI. People who are lonely, at the moment, a lot of people go to the doctors just to have a chat with the doctor. Waste a huge amount of money across the NHS, but imagine you can have that conversation with AI. Great. If it makes you feel less lonely, it helps you with your mental health, you can have a conversation, it's empathetic. That's a really good thing. So
also something that isn't shaped by Google AdWords and advertising.
Yes. It's not saying, you say, you could do with a holiday. Oh, would you like a £299 deal with whoever? No, absolutely. It's not trying to sell you anything. It's trying to engage with you.
I have found deep joy in speaking to the ecosystem players in AI. Mm-hmm. You at Whitespace, Jack at Great Wave,
yes.
Rachel at Beam.org, Kai's. I mean, these companies, they're not orientating around profit margins or optimizing for margin. They're building, when I say these companies, I mean your company and others.
Yes.
They're actually building high-value systems that deliver unique value, which I personally really like.
Yes.
I don't like using AI to optimize cold calling and bothering people with junk email.
Yes.
Whether you're gaining margins by removing people doesn't feel morally right to me, and I don't think it's going to be a utopian outcome. And I'm not here to bludgeon everybody into my ideas, but the real enjoyment I'm finding is talking to people like you are actually fixing problems that probably couldn't have been fixed before without generative AI, which is really interesting. I mean, we've been talking a while and we haven't actually started talking about what we should be talking about. But the real thing that's happening, I see, Gen AI has been a huge catalyst and a timely catalyst with everything that's gone on in global politics to analyse things like sovereignty, like where data is residing, where it's being processed, where it's being used, but also beyond data residence, like where are the companies' tax money going? How is that cycle of finance happening? And I've started looking into this. 93, I think, % of European enterprises are using US-owned infrastructure. Probably because that infrastructure is brilliant and it's really effective and done very, very well, and those companies are amazing. But the flow of finance for cloud infrastructure is going out of Europe.
Yes.
That's the reality.
Yes.
Whether it goes via Ireland in some sort of tax efficient...
Yes.
But the reality is it is going out of Europe. And when I start thinking about sovereignty associated with AI, the global analysis is that between now and 2030, generative AI specifically, and obviously machine learning and all the traditional predictive analytics that are under now the AI banner, are going to generate equivalent financial global impact to the whole economy of China, something $12-13 trillion.
Yes.
So if we're in a situation where 80% of the AI systems are wholly owned in North America, I think 15% in Asia, and I think Europe is like 4%. Sovereignty and the importance of capturing the value of that within the geographic domain to benefit the very people who are leveraging it. Seems like a very sensible way forward. So when I look at Whitespace, I think what are you doing to ensure that not only is our government, our ministry, our protection, our economic viability on the global scale is stable, but also how is it benefiting the citizens and the population of the country in Europe? Because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yes, we saw the internet boom.
Yes.
But this is the next internet boom, probably bigger, to ensure that somehow we, as a country, as a nation, as a collective within Europe, capture this.
Yes.
Does that not seem sensible?
Absolutely. I think there's lots of different layers of sovereignty. So there's based on sort of GDPR and EU AI Act and so on. There's lots of reasons you have to have your data within the territory. So with whether it's in a Dublin data center and stuff. Yeah. And at the end of the day, most of those capabilities are pretty commoditized. But all the big cloud providers are US based. AWS, Microsoft and through Azure, Google, Oracle. They're all US centric businesses. They do have to have local presences, so they have big subsidiaries in all the European territories. I think, but the biggest generative AI capabilities, again, they're all US centric. The people who do the kind of the cutting edge LLMs, the Anthropics, the Microsofts, OpenAI, Google. But there's a few in China coming out, obviously the DeepSeeks and the Quens and people. And then in France, you've got Mistral. But generally, it's still US-centric. But the UK, the UK government, it kind of wants to push sovereignty a lot more. And certainly in the sector that we do a lot in defence, there's a huge pressure to increase our sovereignty. Not to say, right, we're not going to do anything with the Americans. It's not about that at all. It's about we need to make sure we have greater resilience within defence and have UK sovereign capability. So the Strategic Defence Review, which came out yesterday, very much pushing sovereignty. But I think sovereignty is, it's a really complicated thing because it's a global supply chain. It's like, if you have a car now, a Volvo, you can't drive it onto some army bases in the UK because it's manufactured in China and there's risks around that. But we're still, mostly you can go on with other cars where lots of those components are manufactured in China. So we're in a really complicated, messy situation around sovereignty at the moment. But I think government has to really, UK government especially, has to really think hard about sovereignty and drive it. So we've had situations where the UK government has gone to Anthropic for advice around agentic AI. Why are they doing that? Come to someone like Whitespace, and we've done tons with government. We're agnostic to, we work with Microsoft, we work with Google, Oracle, and so on. We're agnostic to underlying large language models. We've been doing it longer than Anthropic. Why are they going for the easy thing? Oh, well, let's go and talk to a big US tech company. Again, there's across government. It's the old you don't get sacked for buying IBM in the olden days. It's still that kind of lazy thinking. We need to drive the UK sovereignty agenda. We've got huge and amazing technology in the UK, incredible people. We're the country that was the birthplace of computers and the microchip and the television and the telephone and AI. Programmable computers. We have such great technology here and great technologists, but sometimes we struggle to scale them up in terms of big tech primes. We don't have any tech primes in the UK.
I was speaking to a founder yesterday. Amazing guy, Greek, great passion, great knowledge, resilient, like him a lot. His objective is getting to a Series A and going to the US. Mm-hmm. I said, why? London's an amazing city.
Yes.
It's, despite all the media, it's not as bad as people like to say. It's a beautiful city with an amazing history, with great talent, great conditions. Why is there this ambition to get to Series A, land 10, 20 million, pre-round and go to the US. And his kind of response was, well, I went on a tour of the US, and it's just amazing. Their risk appetite is lower. Their risk appetite, they're not as worried about things going wrong. And he felt traversing the Atlantic took a bit of pressure off and allowed a bit more creativity and openness to experiment. Was okay.
Yeah,
so I try to talk him out of it, because one of my drivers at the moment is that there's amazing investors, local Globe. I mean, my mate Dan Jones is investing in some amazing companies. European cohesion could be a global powerhouse.
Yes.
Love Europe and the diversity of Europe. It's amazing. The universities, Oxford, Cambridge, and others, amazing. Why not stay and build?
Well, yes. I mean, so I went to South by Southwest, South by in Austin, start of the year. So you're in a very different environment, and I think what I noticed was there is a greater risk appetite, absolutely, from investors. They are much more aware of what the potential of the technology. They're less worried about the downsides. They're kind of like, well, the downsides will get them sorted. They'll sort them out. They're very much about the upside. And it was refreshing to have people going, right, well, what could you do with more money? Could you go harder and harder? And it's very seductive. But the reality is there's a survivor bias in that. So you'll see the likes of Google that have come through the VC, the VC route, and Meta and so on. But what you don't see is the car crash of all the other businesses that were viable, strong businesses, great tech, great potential, that got destroyed by VC, by venture capital money. And the US model, which is invest in 20 companies, all you want is the one or two that are going to return the fund. And as a founder, you're aggressively told to keep funding for growth. And if you're not in the next, when the next round comes from the same VC, if you're not in the top sort of 6 or 7 of the performing out of the 20, you don't get the next round, and no one else will touch you. So you could have been absolutely smashing it in terms of growth, but if one of your, the other companies in your portfolio is doing better than you, and you just miss that cut, you don't get funded, the whole thing collapses. So, but you don't hear about that. There was Builder.ai, right? There was a bit of a lot of fraud around it as well, but it was, it got up to a $1 billion valuation, money being thrown at it. But the pressure was on just to keep hitting those numbers to get to the next round.
The pressure's on to perform.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean perform in terms of perform business-wise. Perform as in the art theatre.
Absolutely.
And do you know how I know? Because I've been there.
Yes.
And bootstrapping, I believe, is the only way to product market fit. Mm-hmm. And I think that bootstrapping drives the right values-based thinking of super lean, leverage and build trusted long-term relationships. Don't optimize for the transaction, because if you're snatching, you're going to fail.
Yes,
and bootstrapping gives you that ability to create real discomfort that is the foundation of true necessary innovation.
Yes,
necessary innovation. And my experience of personally, once you've got lump sum from VC, the pressure to go to events, win awards, start building to the next funding round, and what happens is, whether it's a small percentage or a big percentage, you incrementally lose focus of what's important, which is back to the original point. What's the actual value we're building and delivering?
Yes.
And I think Builder AI and others who have got initial traction through services and consulting, who try to transition to be a product company, if they raise money at that transition, they're almost certainly guaranteed to fail. Because they have market fit from services and consulting. They try to emerge a product, and then they try to throw 4 or 5 million to build that product out, but that product itself doesn't have market fit.
Yes.
Do you see the problem? Yeah. And I see this play out so much, and the amount of founders that I've been fortunate enough to speak to who are focused on optics.
Yes.
And all of a sudden have a worldwide sales leader so they don't have to go and speak to customers, who've got a full deployment of a CRM system with a granular outreach program that involves multimodal go-to-market cold calling thing, and it is grinding something out and it's failing, and there's so many bodies in the wake of it, and it's like, this is something I'm seeing quite often.
Yes.
And like every time I'm like, pull it back, find 2 or 3 more, find replication of the customers, do it the hard way. And if you get to a point where you're genuinely seeing repetition, the same code fulfilling the value to multiple customers in multiple geographies, and you start to see that scaling problem, totally raise money.
Yeah.
But to do it before...
Yeah, no, it's really
because you believe you're on bullshit.
Well,
and as soon as you believe you're on bullshit, it's game over.
Yeah, but going to the theatre, I mean, I've been a director of a couple of listed tech companies, and there was always theatre around press releases. So you had your part of your job was to keep the share price at a level where you haven't got 15 calls from investors and analysts saying, well, why is the share price down? So whenever you did a deal, you're also looking at what the press release is going to say. You weren't, the focus wasn't really on the commercials of that deal. It was on what are the optics. And you still do have that at a VC level, because they have underlying investors that they want to keep the good news flow coming through. So it does change the purity of what you're trying to do, which is, it should be going, speaking to customers, sitting with customers, building with them, driving that value proposition. But yeah, I mean, we've not taken VC to date. We're going through a $10 million raise at the moment through a UK based VC, but we did it at the point where we're profitable, and we've over the last 10 years, for every £1 we've got from angel investors, we've got £5 from customers, and it's been tough because we're building in the defence space, which is huge barriers to entry.
Well, you've chosen a phenomenally hard route.
Absolutely.
Public sector, enterprise buying cycles, 18, 24 months. Yes. Public sector, 3 to 4 years, I would think.
Defence with all the challenges of deploying software into an environment which is not happy to be deployed into for security and other reasons. So we absolutely picked the hardest.
But the market dynamics are lining up to you because they're driving the need to move faster.
Absolutely, no, completely. And the big sort of traditional defence primes, they're just not geared up for the world we've now moved into, and and there are all the they're kind of the core of your DNA as an entrepreneur and a tech entrepreneur, which is roll sleeves up, get stuff done really, really fast, but doing it a proper way, because you're deploying into a very secure environment. But that the whole DNA of you, right, build things super quick. So on Sunday, I was building onto deploying some of our capability onto a laptop that I just got because we needed it for a client and an emergency. But that's the sort of thing where you're always like, what can I do best for the customer, and you've got to drive it. It takes time. It's hard, it's hard work to do it. But once you've done that, that's the time to then bring money in to scale it out. Absolutely. If you do it too soon, it's just a massive distraction.
What's worked well for you in terms of delivering value into the Ministry of Defence?
Working with the customer. I mean, we always say, defence. You don't sell products into defence. You build with. And a company that's been very successful at that is Palantir. They trade on 90 times sales. Credible multiple. But their model is it's not SaaS. It's not subscription as a service. It's not like come on, John Healey, Defence Secretary, stick this on a credit card and buy some licenses. It's you have a platform like we do. We have it collective. But what we're doing is we sit down with the actual end customer and say, how can we make your life easier? How can we deliver what you need to deliver and build capability for you? So we have like an AI operating system, but we can build applications for customers super fast. But it is about sitting down with the end customer saying, what is it that's going to what is going to be a game changer for you? So being direct with the customers is absolutely key. And that was what we built Whitespace around from the start was that direct engagement with the customer. Don't build, then go talk to the customer, say, is this what you like? That's a really slow, painful process to do it. You know, the SaaS business model, I call it the kind of the Henry Ford business model. It's like you're saying to a customer, you can have any feature you want as long as it's on our roadmap. That's a terrible customer experience. You know, we got a contract with the Department of Defense, so US Navy and US Army. Imagine we go to them and say, and they asked us, could we have this feature? And we said, yeah, well, actually, we get more from the MOD at the moment, so they don't want it till next year, so you're going to have to wait. That is a terrible, terrible experience. So our approach has always been, you know, it's customer-centric, not product-centric. If a customer wants it, if it's relevant to them, we're the engineers, you know, we should be building it. And with AI, you can build it super, super fast. So we should not be dictating what a customer should have. And but it means you're not pure SaaS. It means you have a services, we call them customer success engineers. Palantir will call them forward deployed engineers. But you build with the client and you build it really, really fast. And it's a brilliant experience for customers because you're not selling to them, you're solving their problems. And that dynamic is, it's something that's, the world is going through that pivot and that change of approach. A lot of VCs don't get that yet. They're still, no, I want SaaS. You know, I want to be able to put all your numbers into a spreadsheet and autofill to the right, and I get my return, and I get my IRR. And it's like, no, you know, you have to actually sit with customers, and if they want it blue, you make it blue. And it's a very different experience. But I think the thing that we've done really well is to do that, is to sit in bed with the client, sit down with them, ask them what they need, and build with them.
How do you handle technical debt where things are moving so quick? Do you know, I remember, you know, the old proprietary 4 to 5 year hardware refresh days.
Yes.
Then we moved to cloud, you know, where you were into, 12, 8-day-a-month application refresh cycles. We moved into agile with incremental updates, SaaS, new deliveries once a quarter, let's say. You know, we're now at a point where, weekly, I would say opaque updates, certainly with the LLM world, are happening. And not just progressive updates, Paul. Sometimes they roll something back, they test it, they roll it back. We're in a very much test phase with LLMs, which certainly isn't appropriate for what you're doing. I understand that's not. But, you know, you build something 5 years ago, you build something 5 months ago, you build something 5 weeks ago. How quickly does that code base become a liability, and how do you manage that?
So, with the approach that we've taken, which I think, you know, is the only way you can deal with it, is, you know, you first of all, you ditch the idea of agile. Agile is too slow. You know, if you have a tech stack that is built around the kind of agile approach, you're probably not doing it right. So you have to go with a much more modular approach. You have to separate the engineering from the application layer. So we've separated out. We call it the operating system. So that's dealing with the stuff that isn't going to change. So permissioning, security, you know, infrastructure, you know, that part is the core foundations of every capability, and it's, you know, it will change at the pace that it's been changing for a number of years. You know, you've got to keep looking at threats and everything else, but it's going to that bit is not going to change at huge speed. But it's the application layer. So we have a bunch of components, a componentized approach, like a loosely coupled approach, and when you build an application. You build an application on the platform from the different components, but you can swap those components out at speed. And you can take an application, you can clone it for a different user, swap out a component because they want a different one, and you go again. And that means we can take advantage of whatever technology advances that come out. So when DeepSeek released their open source model, you know, we were able to use it on our platform within 16 minutes. Now, there's very good reasons why you wouldn't want to use it, but it was, you know, the whole approach of what we have is that you've got to be tech agnostic. You cannot lay bets. So when we're working with the MOD, we say, look, we've got partnerships with Microsoft, Google. We'll swap out whoever's the right partner. You cannot say, you know, this piece of technology is the right one. This large language model, this agentic framework. You can't even say this database structure is the correct one. So everything you do, you have to be able to swap it out. And it makes it really hard from an engineering perspective, because it's more, you're having to build things that are loosely coupled or less opinionated. It's far easier to say, right, now we're going to stick everything on Postgres and we're going to have a big relational database. It's like, okay, that's great, right up to the moment where it's no longer great. And it's a really different engineering approach. And we've had to change a lot of our engineers, because we had to say to them, look, half of what you know is redundant now. And the ones who understood which half to ignore, which half to keep, have gone on to be, really successful. The ones who just couldn't get rid of, they had an idea in their head, they thought that was the truth, but they didn't really understand the fundamental reason why they had that idea. So they couldn't understand, well, actually, that's no longer the appropriate way to do things. So you have to have an architecture which can adapt super fast. And again, going back to the way the strategic defence review for the UK defence, and this will pan out across the whole of government, is that you have to be able to take advantage of technology as soon as it comes out. Now, in defence, that is a absolutely existential threat if you can't. We say if AGI came out tomorrow, and some startup came up with an open source, say, right, give me $100 million and we'll give you a copy, and let's say it's completely valid, it completely works. If as an organisation, whether that's defence or a private organisation or government, if you can't take advantage of it, next day you're at massive competitive threat, a disadvantage. And that's whether the worries from Russia or if it's from a state perspective or from your competitors.